So with the kettlebell swing, they're taught slightly differently depending on where you look. So what we want from the swing is nice explosive hips. We're catching it with the hips and then throwing it with the hips. We don't care how high it comes in terms of how high we're propelling it, but we don't want it to come over the height where the hands pass parallel to the floor, the arms pass parallel to the floor. If we have a lot of power in the hips and it's coming that high, we almost want to pull it back down. Okay, so in terms of the setup position, we set up with it slightly in front of the toes and tip it towards you slightly. From there, we obviously want to be nice and flat here, and we kind of going to hike it like an American football. Okay, so we bring it up and it comes nice and close to the hips. It's key that we keep the weight very, very close to the hips. The lower the weight gets in the swing, the more we're going to rely on the lower back. So that what we will try and do is the idea is to try and keep the weight above the knees at all times. So we get pulled to there, we come back up. That's why we want it to be a hinge, to use the glutes and the hamstrings more so than the quads. The more we bend the knees, I know a lot of people kind of feel like it's safer, but we're going to rely on the lower back a lot more when we're bending the knees a lot. Okay, so some good reps are going to look like so. So the hips are pushing back, kettlebell staying nice and close to the hips, my neck staying relatively straight, so I'm not overarching through the neck. And then we set it down as we picked it up. Okay, main things to look for is we're fully locking the knees out as we come up, as the hips, but we're not leaning back, okay? So we're getting as tall as we can. So the analogy would be just to stand as tall and as quick as possible on the swing. If people aren't proficient with the hinge or haven't quite got the technique to do that dynamically yet, we would use a high pull, because usually we'll be using kettlebell swings to get more of an aerobic or a metabolic effect from the exercise. So we would use a high pull. So there, the weight's going to stay closer to the body, so essentially a little bit safer. Less can go wrong. So the weight starts directly between the feet, not in line with the toes. Directly on the instep. From there, hips go back. Nice big chest as if we're going to set up for a deadlift. From there, we stand. We lead with the elbows, pull to mid-rib, okay? We reset onto the floor, lead with the elbows, pull to mid-rib, okay? Common mistake on these is people will feel like they're pulling too high. At no point do we want the hands above the elbows, okay? So we pull to this position here. So the weight at no point is above the elbows, okay? So that's a slight regression from the swing. In terms of a progression from the swing, we would go to a single arm swing. So then once we get good at that, we can start to progress to cleans and snatches and that sort of thing. So with the single arm swing, exactly the same setup and the same idea in terms of the movement. Obviously we add in that rotational component. So we're trying to resist that. So we're trying to stay fairly square in the shoulders, like so.